What's up, everybody? Today I have with us Jacob Trogan. Jacob is 25 years old and part of Rap Academy's Hall of Fame. He's an equity millionaire. He's now done 25 seller finance houses, 21 of which are currently occupied. And he's been doing this strategy for over 2 years. Welcome, Jacob. Tell us a bit about how you got into this model of real estate.
I started in real estate, I would say 4 years ago, but it started much before that. I think a lot of people cite the book they read, but for me, it was Think and Grow Rich. I've always had more of a spiritual approach to things, and I really feel like that book is very spiritual and creating things and like declaring, "Hey, I'm gonna have this much money." So that was the book. It wasn't Rich Dad Poor Dad. It was Think and Grow Rich when I was a junior in high school, and that started my path. I was reviewing my goals recently, and I'd hit all of them, and I wrote a bunch of financial goals, exactly how much I'd make, how much passive income. But as far as how I came to the model, yeah, once again, spiritual, very God directed, just little steps here and there. I feel like the riches are in the niches. I got into this niche little by little, getting more specific into the real estate industry. I started broad, listening to podcasts. I could go into that trajectory, some of the mindset with goal setting. I'm happy to go anywhere that interests you.
I love going to the niches because I think like such an important thing. And so many people are scattered and they're shiny object syndrome. They're trying to do a million things at once. And I see the same thing. Like all business is about finding the niches and the blue oceans. So I'd love to hear more about like how you discover this niche and like why you believe the riches are in the niches.
I just locked up a deal today, actually under contract to buy a house in the next few weeks. Bought one 2.5 weeks ago. So on track to basically be buying a house a month. I've been doing that for about 2.5 years. I've sold a few of them, hold most of them. I hold them as wraps. I'm really a note portfolio owner. And people always ask me, hey, do you buy here? No, I buy one specific subsection of Kansas City Metro. And it's really great because I was at a meetup one time, and this guy, they own at least 10 million. They wholesale a lot. They do a lot of commercial properties. He was up at the speaker with a microphone, and he was talking about that a little bit. He said, actually, you should be like Jacob Trogan, pointing at me at the back of the room. Like, you got to niche yourself into a specific thing. And then everyone knows, like everyone in Kansas City knows I do raps. I might not do the most volume, but I oftentimes find myself consulting with people who sometimes even do more. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's a good point. And they learn from me, even though they might be doing more volume of the reps, because it's really all I do. As far as getting into it, I realized my personality is numbers, math. I viewed it in two ways. How do I get started in real estate? I can either be a realtor or a loan officer. So I started applying to be a loan officer. I decided, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to understand how mortgages work. I got licensed as a loan officer and learned all about mortgages, realized, oh, I can buy a house. So I ended up buying my first house 3 months after I started as a loan officer, because I realized it was super easy to qualify on a conventional loan. Basically, you can buy a house with 2 weeks of a salary. I put 3% down and bought a fixer upper. If I could do it again, that's a whole thing to dig into. But if I could do it again, I actually wouldn't have bought a fixer upper, but it was great. That's created a lot of equity. I realized that I didn't like schmoozing realtors, doing the retail side of things. I wasn't super local either. I was refinancing people nationwide. And so I literally just called a hard money lender. I called a few actually, but I called one specifically, Rex. He was here locally. And I didn't know this at the time. He appealed to beginner flippers doing hard money, experienced people too, but he was kind of like, hey, you've never done a deal before, go get hard money from Rex. And so I called Rex. I'm like, hey, can I work for you? He's like, who are you? Actually, I'm looking for somebody, and he had hired somebody to find him a worker, and he interviewed me. I had the background of doing loans. I became a loan officer assistant for Rex, and grew his book of business. And I was able to just talk to investors all day. They would send me their scope of work. They would send me their deal and say, can you guys fund this? And I would look at it, and I started to look at how to underwrite it as a lender. And I got a lot of reps relatively quick. But just like my loan officer job, I had this pattern of only being at jobs 9 or 10 months. And I would just get bored because I was in the job for learning rather than the money, which I'm glad. At the time, I felt guilty about not giving full effort. Looking back, I should have given more full effort. I started making good money with Rex, but I was like, man, I see these guys flipping. I'm doing loans for them. I want to flip. So I ended up partnering. I started going to a bunch of meetups, and I partnered with these guys to flip a deal. And I won't get into that because that's not the focus. The flip went well. A whole lot of lessons on that one, but no big losses. I ended up parting ways, and I ended up getting fired. I hate to share that this was the second time that year. In January, I got fired from my loan officer job, and that was a layoff. I'll call it a layoff, but basically I got fired in January and again in December. The January one was an actual layoff. They were skimming the high performing loan officers. And so they said, hey, you're not doing a ton. And of course I wasn't, because it was my first 6 months in the business. And I did about 10 million in loan origination. So it was actually quite a bit. They had overhired. The point is I got fired. I wasn't the best. And they let me go. It worked out perfectly because the day they let me go was the day immediately following when Rex had extended me a job offer. So he extended me a job offer. Next day I got fired. They gave me they were a bigger loan officer. So I got fired in January, and then I went to work with Rex. I'd always go to Rex and I'd be like, Rex, how can we grow? How can we do more volume of loans? And he's like, he actually started wholesaling a lot. And now he's actually a really well-known wholesaler. He still does lending, but he didn't want to grow his lending branch. He described me to your business partner as a squirrel brain. And I don't know if that was exactly the reason, but I wasn't the best employee. But point is, I got fired from him too. I got fired from 2 jobs within 10 months. And my wife was really concerned. She's like, my husband's a bum. When I got fired from Rex, I was in the middle of a flip. About a month after I got fired, we basically sold that flip and I got a decent cash payday. I had been saving a ton of money. I always learned how to be really frugal. So I just had a ton of savings because I was making really good commissions with Rex. I had that flip going. I was kind of general retail loan officer. Then I got a little bit more niche. I said, I'm going to do investor loans, started understanding hard money. And then I was like, where do I go? I wanted to work for myself. I knocked on doors trying to do direct to seller. I started cold calling like business owners to like pitch some like marketing service, even though I didn't have any background really in that. My background was in real estate and loans. I kept going to these meetups because I had been going to like local real estate meetups. I decided to go to one. I'm pretty religious and I was praying, reading scriptures. How am I going to make money for my family? I had a kid. I was 22. So I had already had a kid and was married and a mortgage. So I put on a good amount of responsibility on myself. And we had savings, but I was like, can I make money? It was September. And I had a clear impression from God, you're not making any money till January 1st. It was very weird. I was like, what? That sounds horrible. That's at least 3.5 months. Not even a week later, I went to this meetup. I was talking to a former competitor, a loan officer doing hard money. And he said, hey, do you know this guy named Tanner? Yeah, they wholesaled 100 deals in the last 12 months and they're doing notes. And it was really interesting because I had done some journaling right before this meeting and I had said, I'm really interested in the note space, in note investing and wholesaling rather than flipping for generating cash. Those two things combined, people call it reticular activating system. I kind of primed myself like, I want to go down this route of wholesaling.
What was it about notes that was appealing to you?
The passivity. I saw it was all 80-year-olds, no young blood. It seemed ripe for innovation. Flipping was like the realtor avenue. I do a lot of rehabs now. That was the more tangible aspect. I'm flipping, I'm rehabbing. And the notes seemed like more the loan officer space of like, oh, numbers, I'm determining yield. It piqued my interest because that's where my brain naturally went, my mathematical brain. And so I can't say exactly, but it was just like, it interested me. I think like pursuing your interests, like just your curiosity, I was curious about it. And so I had written down those two things. And then his name was Nigel. He introduced me to Tanner and he said, oh yeah, he does notes and wholesaling. And I was like, oh, I perked up. I went home. I don't do a ton with networking cards. I looked at the card and I had a very strong, once again, like God speaking to me is set up an appointment with him now. And so in that moment, I listened to that impression and I texted, I might've called too, I forget, but hey, can I meet with you? I wanted to do my own thing, be my own business owner. I realized because I'd been fired twice within 10 months, I wanted to have my own business. He's like, yeah, sure, come meet me at my house. We work out of our house. So I come over a couple days later and everyone was sitting around a table. It was an interesting experience to meet Tanner, but I really connected with Tanner. And he recognized I had a good mathematical brain. Something was there. And I don't know if it was that same day. I ended up staying over there for 3 hours. It was either that same day or the next day. It was like, hey, I'm going to work for you for free. I like what you guys are doing. I like where you're going. You guys had just made a transition from wholesaling into doing wraparound mortgages. So you're doing sub 2 specifically and wrapping them. And you guys were in this pivot period. And I was like, I'm going to work for them. I wouldn't have done that if it weren't for the impression that I'm not going to work, or I'm not going to make money till January 1st. I offered to work for free. I didn't give a timeline, but I knew in my head it was going to be like, listen, I need to make money by January 1st. And if some opportunity presents itself in these next few months, great, but I'll let it play out and see. I had savings. I ended up working for you guys and I got to learn the whole business model. Kind of similar stint where I stayed for 9 months. I kind of quit, but I was kind of fired. Basically, a consultant said, with you guys too, it was like nine. It's funny. It was like 9 months as a loan officer, 9 months with Rex, 9 months again.
Jacob came into our business. Jacob speaks Spanish, and a lot of our buyers are Latino. None of us speak Spanish. So Jacob had this role where he could talk to the buyers, and we put him in the role of finding the buyers. And as he was finding the buyers, like it wasn't the right fit for Jacob. Like Jacob never wanted to be a realtor, and he was in this role that he kind of liked, but also didn't really like. But in the process, you learned basically the inner workings of like everything that we were doing with the Raps and Notes.
It's interesting. When I started getting paid, the value disappeared in certain ways. My period with you guys where I worked for free was most valuable for me and for you guys, which was interesting. Like, I
Mhm.
acted as a consultant in certain ways, and I looked at your business from a numbers perspective, and that's where I
Mhm.
brought value to you guys. And then when we tried to put me into an employee role, I didn't really help you guys sell houses. I didn't really perform the job super well. And yeah, it wasn't a fit, but I
Yeah.
learned.
Through our experience of doing over 60 of these, we've tried so many things for every aspect of the business. You were one of our experimentations of bringing all of our buyers in-house and seeing how we can find buyers in the easiest, most efficient way. And so that was a lesson for both of us. They came in, learned the model, stayed for 9 months, then left and started doing it on your own.
I started doing it on my own in a little bit of a ramp up period. Took about 3 months to get my first deal from a wholesaler. Within 2 weeks, I got my second deal. About a month later, got the third one. Continued on this trajectory of one a month with some stints in there where it wasn't one a month, with one stint where I bought four in 1 month. So yeah, my first house that I ended up wrapping was bought in September 2023, less than 2 years ago.
Let's highlight that. Like in 2 years, you've done 25 of these as a one-man show and consistently purchased over time.
If I stopped spending all of my net cash flow on deals, why did I stop? But if I stop doing that, the net's over 10,000 a month. And I kind of am hoping my net cash flow will pay for a VA, another VA, and for supporting 2 or 3 vacant houses at a time. So I can just perpetually have a machine of buying one house a month and pay for my living. 2 years later, I'm $10,000 net a month, basically about a million in equity position. And I think it's like 3 point some million of houses owned with about two. I have a good amount of debt, right? Of course. So yeah, it's like 3 million in houses, 2 million in debt.
How have you structured these types of deals? Walk us through your first few houses and how you structured them and what you were looking for.
I approached my houses with a BRRRR mindset. I bought them in cash. I took my previous experience. Investors, they'd call me and say, hey, I have this deal. We bought it from a wholesaler or we're under contract. What do you think? I knew how to analyze things where you could get 100% funding from a hard money lender. They would pay for the entire purchase price and the rehab. My first deal, I found someone who lent 90% of the purchase price. My first deal that I wrapped, it was like an $80,000 purchase price. So I brought 8,000 plus some closing fees to close. So let's just call it 10,000 I brought to closing, and he funded the rest. And the rest of the rehab is a $45,000 rehab. I had done a $25,000 rehab on our first flip, very cosmetic. This one was bigger. I think what's cooler is the one I got 2 weeks later. I bought it for 80,000. I lined up the buyer before I closed on it with the wholesaler. So in the morning of the day, and there's a lesson here. I closed to buy the property in the morning. No money out of pocket on that one. I was able to get 100% financing. This was my second one. In the afternoon, I went to another title company, and the buyer gave me 40K down and said, I'm going to take care of the mortgage payment moving forward. I didn't have any cash out of pocket. I didn't turn on utilities. I didn't rehab the house. I didn't even clean it out. And he agreed to buy it for 125. I bought it for 80. And so just like that, I created 45K just because I found this buyer. And I started getting addicted to deals like that where you do no rehab. That's a great opportunity. But my other deal, which I'm doing a bit more of these now, I bought it for 80,000, put 45,000 into it, so 125,000 total all in. I ended up selling it for 190 with a 20K down payment, in which I charged 5,000 closing costs. So they ended up owing me 175,000. I owed 125,000. I refied. That costs money. People sometimes don't account for that. But the point is, there's at least 50,000 in equity, and I got a check for 20K up front, which that one kind of ended up netting out a little bit because I held that one vacant for a little bit. I think I made 8,000 up front with 50,000 about in equity, and it cash flowed, I think like 650 or 700 a month. And so that was the one that I rehabbed. The other one that I got a 40K check, it didn't cash flow at all. Those were my first two deals. I got 40K in my pocket, and that allowed me to keep going. I figured out the problem later. He owes me 82,000 and I owe 80,000. There's no spread here. That's a problem. Figuring out that problem 18 months later. At the time, I don't recommend people do this, but for me, I was like, I got 40K. Let's go. Now I can pay myself a little bit. I didn't make a ton of money when I worked for you guys. So it was a long time without making a ton of money. And then I just yeah, go ahead.
How many hours do you feel like you work per week as you've been doing this?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about my current lifestyle. The last 20 months, right? I think my mind's been focused on this business. I work in very leveraged manners. I find the houses from a wholesaler. I just need to talk to wholesalers, then I analyze the deal. I'm not doing the rehab. I have a project manager. Once the house is bought, we're rehabbing it. I monitor that project twice a week. And then I also learned this. I tried to find the buyers myself, and I did that for a while, but now I pay somebody to find the buyers for me, and they're going to do all the marketing. They're going to do all the work. And then they just text me and they say, hey, we got a buyer. They agreed to your price. They have an EMD. They're going to write a check directly to your bank account. So I'm pretty leveraged through others. And so I'm not doing acquisition. I'm not doing disposition. I'm not doing rehab, but I am doing all of them because I'm managing each one of them. I do acquisition through analyzing deals. The hourly or weekly time commitment on that could be pretty low. It can't be more than 20 hours of like dedicated work a week. I do a lot of networking stuff, and this is paid a lot of dividends. So I have put in full-time work weeks, but my current workflow is very light. I have properly scheduled 3.5 to 4 hours a day on this business. I'm spending a lot of time writing. It's pretty easy. I don't want to tell people I did this working 20 hours a week, but I kind of did. And I think you could take that 20 hours, and I think it could be even less hours because you're working in a very leveraged manner where you don't have to do the grunt work. You're just putting together the pieces. My current goal moving forward is to continue buying one a month with about 12 hours a week. Yeah, if that says anything. I think once you have it kind of figured out, and I have a process, I have a virtual assistant, it should not take more than 12 hours a week to do one a month. That's my goal.
How do you feel like having a community like Rap Academy and Tanner and myself impacted your success?
I was making $8,000 a month, and I worked for free for 3 months. My opportunity cost was 24 grand. I was making $8,000 a month with Rex. I think it's worth double that. I don't know what it's worth. I have $1 million equity. It is equity. I have $10,000 a month cash flow. I got more value from being close to you and Tanner. Tanner was a personality fit. There was a lot of mindset for me. A key realization I had was I knew more up here than a lot of people who were doing more deals than me, but there was some integration of the heart too, where you need to take your first step. We have group calls where I can see it in them. They know the steps, but you need to take a step of faith. It's like, I don't know what step 2 is, but I got step 1. I got the deal under contract. Now I got to find the lender. Or I found this seller. I don't do sub 2s, but for me, I just got this deal under contract today. I don't know who's funding it, but I have a track record. It's like option 1, 2, or 3. Who wants to fund it? I texted somebody. They said, yeah, sure. We probably can do it, but we have this criteria. I don't want them to fund it because I don't want to deal with it. I'd rather get somebody else. I have a few options, but I don't know who's funding this deal right now. I'll figure it out. I figured it out 25 times. Not knowing every step was a big lesson I picked up from you guys. I stepped into your guys' business and realized you were buying 5 deals a month. You knew what you were doing, but it was always chaos. There was always something like, I was like, wow, if they can do 5 a month and this is what it looks like, could I do 1 a month? Like, that was kind of my takeaway is like, could I just do like 1/5 of what they're doing without a team, without anybody? I've had a VA for a while, but really, that just gets me out of some of the weeds of like utility turn-ons and bookkeeping. The VA is not needed to do the important steps of what I'm doing. It's mostly relationship building with wholesalers, with realtors, with people who can bring buyers. This is contractors, referral partners. It's relationship building with a project manager, with different contractors to do the work. and relationship building with lenders, with hard money lenders in particular. And then you got to be able to refinance. So the value, it's cheesy, but your net worth is your net worth. I just text people like, hey, I'm doing a foundation. It costs $30,000. I texted 2 people. How much did this cost? Do you have any tips? They both send me the same guy as a referral and told me about the estimate of the price. I got $50,000 bid. Now I'm getting it done for $27,000. What's the value of that? Those are 2 people in my network who are saving me 22 grand or something. It's repeat with all the education I've done. It's mostly the network and like the just isolated questions. That's the true value. It's not as much like the educational course quite so much, even though that is valuable. It's more like, hey, I'm right here. What would you do? What's your insight? And then that kind of tailored guidance. And that's what's most valuable. But you got to have all the background of the education first. Like I had listened to so many hours of Bigger Pockets, been in the industry, got legally licensed as a loan officer, which is harder than the realtor license. I went through a ton of education. I worked for over 2 years before you guys. That's over 2 years, 8 hours a day. I might have had more head knowledge because I had worked 2 years in the industry. So other people do need the head knowledge too, and they might need more of that. But for me, the gap was the emotional. And so whatever the gap is for people, sometimes it's the head, sometimes it's the heart. Sometimes it's just taking action and they actually know both and they're not even that scared, but they're not doing the right things. You need a slight course correction.
What would you say to someone who's sitting on the sidelines? They want to join Rap Academy or a mentorship or mastermind, help them do these deals. What would you tell them?
Utilize the network over the education. It's a no-brainer to me. If you don't have a great investment vehicle, this is extremely accessible. If you're already in real estate, why not add this on to what you're doing? Especially like we get a lot of wholesalers. People who own rentals, why not change your rentals into this? To me, it seems like why not? I just bought like $150. It was nothing. It was nothing. It's $150. I was talking to someone in my church. They're like, do you think I should do this thing? It costs like $100. I'm like, why is this a decision? I just make that decision in 20 seconds. You have to pay for education. I made a post and multiple people responded. I think 100K was the highest answer. It was basically, how much did you spend in the last year in education? And this isn't college. It was on like masterminds. They're actually part of one of the masterminds that you're in. And that was part of it. The 100K just wasn't that one mastermind, but they're like, I did this, this, and this, and it added up to 100K. And the guy who spent the most was at the highest level. I had multiple people respond. All had at least 10 properties and they said at least 20,000. That was good for me to recalibrate. I think I've spent 25 grand in education beyond 2 years working for you guys. On top of everything I've shared, I've spent another 25 grand in education outside of college. Some has been worth it, some hasn't. I've heard it described as you go to college, you're not expecting every course to be the same, but it's the sum total of all the courses that end up creating a result. Some people think, I'm going to buy one course, that's going to be all the difference. What if this was just a little piece you needed to fit into your strategy? For me, the tiny piece I needed was you guys, you and Tanner, being an example of, I don't know every step, but we're going to buy a house anyways. I saw that and I worked and I was around that. And I was like, well, I can do that. And now here I am doing the same thing. And it's like, but yeah, this isn't super hard. And no one has it completely figured out. There's always some aspect of faith. And that was the puzzle piece for me. It wasn't, how do I structure this deal? How do I find this deal? How do I finance it? I had figured out those puzzle pieces previously in my career. And so adding that one piece was great. But I think for some people, maybe you do need 5 pieces still. And maybe your course could give them all 5 pieces. And maybe it gives them 4. And maybe they're like, oh man, it didn't give me any results. Well, it gave you 4 pieces and you do one more course or meet one more person and you're there. You got to stick with it long enough. I've seen so few failures. I go to all these meetups, meet somebody and they're like, yeah, I want to do real estate. They're not there the next month. Quick fallout rate.
Another thing is at these real estate events, you meet the people who've like literally been sitting on the sidelines for 20 years. And they're like, I want to buy my first house. It's like, you've been coming to these meetings for forever. Like, why aren't you buying the house? And the reality is the mind gets in the way of taking action. It begins with finding a deal, right? That's step one, find a deal. If you have a deal, there's many things you can do with it. Especially in a community like Rap Academy, you have the know-how, knowledge, and expertise around you to help you get to the next piece. This is the first piece, then the next, then the final piece, and you do it again. Gaining competence leads to confidence, and you can do 25 houses and be able to stop working if you wanted to.
Yeah, I realized it's never guaranteed no matter how many times I do it. Nothing's guaranteed in life, but when you get so many reps, why would I not be able to get funding this time out of 25 times I've bought houses? And then why would I not be able to sell to a buyer when I've done it 20 times? I need to be aware of those things. What has changed? What's different? I'm always asking myself that because I have somewhat of a slightly lower risk tolerance than some people. I haven't lost on a single deal because I analyze them well up front, but I never know for sure. Every time I'm buying the house, it's always like, this could go wrong. And usually at least one thing goes wrong. You need to plan for the margin for stuff to go wrong. I've had some where major things went wrong and then it still is a total deal. You have to know that something's going to go wrong and that's okay. You can never guarantee anything in life.
Our process for doing wraps and seller finance deals is a relatively proven process. There are variables that happen, but we have a pretty tight process that we follow of knowing what a good deal is and how to get this deal sold.
What I've seen that stops people from moving forward is they're like, what about this thing? And we get so many like tax and legal questions. It's like, that doesn't matter. Just get a deal. I agree. Your process, the process in general is really simple. The process is find a deal, stabilize the deal. Once stabilized, get a buyer. Sometimes you don't even have to stabilize it. My second deal, I didn't stabilize it. I bought the deal, got a buyer, and he kind of appeared out of nowhere. But there's a proven process to each of them. It doesn't have to be risky at all. I share that something will go wrong because I want people to accept that when you feel it in your body. It's like, oh, something probably will go wrong. I'm going forward anyways. It's like that metaphorical, like entrepreneurial leap off the cliff.
Yeah, that's what our brains are for, and that's why we're here. We get to solve challenges. What fun would
It's
it be
fun.
without challenges? Yes, we
It's
get to
fun.
problem solve. We get to figure it out.
Like that's what
Yeah.
makes me feel alive, and it can become an addiction. Sometimes I'm in this space of peace now, and don't get me wrong, I feel peace a lot. I attribute that more to God, but I'm in this space of I don't have a problem, and I almost pull myself back into the problem because it's so fun to solve. And I think that's a whole other thing you could figure out psychologically with your therapist later on. But that's generally like the state that you have to step into is I'm stepping into a problem and I'm going to solve it. And sometimes it's actually a pretty small problem to be solved for like a 50K payday. I agree with you. There's a proven process. I really want to push back on people where it's like, this thing will go wrong or this thing will go wrong. Yes, you're right. I've had something go wrong in every deal for 20 of them.
Figured it out and you're making great money. Awesome, man. What's your favorite thing about Rap Academy?
I like the questions that remind me how far I've come because sometimes I see that question and I'm like, there's no such thing as a stupid question. I remember mulling on that for 3 months. And then someone responds and it was like, oh, that's the answer I came to after 3 months. So you saved like 3 months in that gap by having other people. And I've gotten my own answers still. I'm a little bit more in the stage where I get slight tweaking to how I'm viewing things. Like one thing I'm excited for, I pivoted my business, the Hartman method with Dustin. So he made 12K. He didn't buy the deal. He didn't wholesale the deal. That's bigger than a 3K assignment. The point is 12K is really good. And he made 12K just by bringing a buyer. And he actually connected them to a different investor's deal as a wrap buyer. Like to me, that was proof of concept and gave me faith to take that step now. And like, I don't know if this will work, but he gave me some evidence that it will. And so now I'm going to go act on that evidence. All you need is enough evidence. Essentially, what community is gaining pieces of evidence like this is achievable. Even now, I'm like, oh man, could I buy some mobile home parks? Oh man, that's too hard. It's the same conversation I went through with single family home. Who am I to buy a mobile home park? Well, that's growth. Guess what helps me get out of that? It's just the same patterns. Once you step into this pattern of growth of like, okay, I hear this limiting belief. I hear this thing where I say I can't do it and I step forward anyways. Well, then that becomes like a part of you when you start to get enough reps in that, where it's just like, that's how people become billionaires. They become accustomed to that state of risk. That's how you have the wealth divide. You'll find talking to most wealthy people, they're just living in a different paradigm. That's it. It's that paradigm for them is, oh yeah, there's risk. And then eventually it doesn't become risky and it's actually kind of boring. I've bought some houses and I'm unexcited. It's kind of boring. One lesson I've had recently is I need to stick with this basic thing. It's not exciting anymore, but I keep buying a house a month. How many years do I have to do that to have 10 million? We're accustomed so much to the internet nowadays of what it looks like to be a 1 percentile. 1 percentile is, I think, is 10 million. It's not particularly hard to get to 10 million. I've done the math. If I just kept doing one house a month for a few years, I'm getting there. So to re-summarize, what do I find most valuable? It's not the education. I've looked at raising capital. You're an extremely valuable resource for that. For me, it's like these questions and paradigm shifts that people bring. Even if I'm already doing deals, I could make this slight change. And a lot of times it's the reminder that it's not complicated. I talk to these people and they're like, it's so hard. And then that helps me. I do the same thing where I'm like, oh, I should do this new thing, shiny object syndrome. I come in here on your group and people make me realize I got it pretty good. I should just keep doing the same thing and stick with it. What's my next place of growth? I don't want to become stagnant, but don't drop this thing just because it's become comfortable. That's the problem. Either it's scary and you don't want to take the action, or it's boring and you're like, it's not worth my time.
Consistency compounds. The biggest thing is compound interest, right? Whenever we invest time, it compounds. Like if you just keep showing up and keep doing the thing, you keep buying one house per month, another month goes by, it's another house, and you're slowly building.
What would 10,000 hours be split over 2 years? You're an expert with 10,000 hours, right? I don't even think they need 10,000 hours. If you could just actually take action based off what you're learning for a period of 2 years, even in micro actions, it's pretty hard for someone to actually fail. I'm continuously amazed at how easy it is to succeed.
One of the biggest things we do is we gather people with shiny object syndrome. We say, focus here, stay focused, right? If you keep doing that over and over again, and with the $10,000 a month, they have a choice point. When you have enough money to cover your burn rate, you're free to live out more of God's will for you. You're equipped with the skill sets to go to that next thing, whatever that might be. That's why I see like this exit strategy, this investment strategy can get so many people to they sit down, focus, take the action, take that leap of faith and that investment in themselves and show up day in and day out. It's always a chicken versus egg equation, right? You have to take that leap before you see the results. When you bought your first house, you took that leap. It's the same thing when you start doing mobile home parks. You're going to have to take that leap again.
It reminds me when I became a loan officer, I wasn't qualified. I wrote down specifically, I'm like, what kind of job do I want? I actually did this exercise. What color is your parachute? It's very like, who am I? What is my skill set? What do I want my career to be? And for me, it was a loan officer. I got 2 other jobs before that. My wife, I'd gotten her pregnant before we got married. Bad Jacob, bad Jacob. I was kind of scared because I was 22. We moved. I'm from Arizona. We moved to Kansas City so she could be closer to her family. I had no clue what I was doing. I said, I want to learn about real estate. I want to be in a job learning about it. I actually had temptations. They weren't evil. I got an offer from a Quick Trip really quick. If I didn't know what I wanted, I would have taken that. And then I got an offer from a bank, and that was kind of interesting. So I ended up working at a bank for 2 months as an in-between. I didn't give them 2 weeks. Not the best practice, but I just said, because I knew they would not want me to work there for 2 months. I needed income for 2 months. My loan officer job had a start date like 2.5 months in the future. So I basically just handed them in my resignation. I'm like, thank you guys. Thank you for the 2 months. They trained me. Felt a little bad, but like I knew what I was shooting for as a loan officer. And then I still knew what I was shooting for because there was loan officers making $1 million at that time. And there still are. I wanted to be a real estate investor. And I kind of started with that. And that's part of what got me into the niche. I really like this concept from, I forget what the movie is. It's this African kid who goes on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and he ends up winning the whole thing. He goes on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and wins it. He wins $1 million. And every question, it like goes back to his life. And it shows like him going through some experience in his life. And that was the answer for that question. And I love the symbolicness of that because for me, I was able to know that this was for me. I served a mission. So that was one way I was able to help you guys find buyers. I did a church mission where I spoke Spanish. I lived in Mexico City, helping Hispanic buyers using my loan officer background. It was a perfect alignment of all of my past work history that led to getting into the niche. If people take away anything from this, I want to highlight the importance of divine inspiration. I call it God. People can call it the universe. Listening to that intuition and guiding force and writing down what you want. I kept saying no to the temptation until what I wanted showed up. I wouldn't have been able to do that unless I had decided what I wanted. I love this business model. It's super aligned for me, helping families, but it's also the lifestyle I want. I'm diving into writing now. I spend a lot of time with my family. I do a morning workout with my wife. I've been doing afternoon family activities in the middle of the week. It's a very free lifestyle for me. And I think if I didn't make any more money, which I will, it's inevitable. Your income keeps growing when you take these steps. If I didn't make any more money, and this was my life for a long time, it's beautiful. I have complete time freedom. Sometimes on the couch, I'm like, I would like to have more cash, but I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. It's very freeing with time. With cash too. I just have an addiction of jumping into that step of faith with every new house. I'm addicted to buying houses, so it's hard for me to enjoy that 10,000 a month. I'm spending half of it on empty houses. I have 4 empty right now. I'm not stressed. I have 4 empty houses. I don't care. My cash flow covers it. But those 4 empty houses are going to create 200,000 in wealth for me. Like, why wouldn't I always have that? It's my new normal. The first time I had 4 empty houses, it was like, oh, I'm so scared. I have to pay all these mortgages. And I just felt full of stress. And now it's like, I can't be more relaxed. Maybe I'm too relaxed.
We are constantly being grown to be able to handle more and more. The scariness of yesterday is the normality of tomorrow. We just have larger capacities to take on things.
The beauty. People should definitely do the course. Don't be that person who's like, this is going to go wrong and this is going to go wrong. And what's going to go right? Think about what's going to go right too. Don't be full of fear, be full of faith. It's one of the two voices. Which one do you want to listen to? Be aware of fear and be like, what is possible? And if you start stepping into that space, that just becomes who you are. Everyone I know who's making very good money lives in that space. More than me. I still have a lot of growth in that regard. Anyone I look up to, they're in that space of faith more frequently.
Yeah, awesome. If you want to give one more final piece of advice to anyone who's listening that may be looking for a leg up,
I'll give a book. The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. He talks about a daily or weekly thing. Spend time every week analyzing deals. This book helped me a lot. I made a plan based off this book. A few habits. Analyze your net worth. Monthly. Analyze deals. Weekly. Dedicate at least 3 hours minimum if you're part-time. Every week, I'm analyzing deals. Every month, I'm looking, how do I grow my net worth? I ask myself that question. And you do that by looking at your assets and liabilities. It's not coming from a job. It's not even coming from flipping. This creates 50K in net worth growth every single month. This strategy that you teach people how to do, Phil, for me, that's 500K, 600K a year if I do it every single month. How many years do I need to do that to be a 1 percentile in the US? Review net worth, analyze deals. Yeah, tactical.
Thanks for coming on. Where can people find you? What's the best way to reach out?
Facebook. You can DM on LinkedIn. So you'll see me on Instagram, LinkedIn, but I'm not public on Instagram. Facebook is where the local deals happen. Just search Jacob Trogan. You'll see me on Facebook. Send a friend request or comment on a post.
Thanks for coming on. One more tidbit, like how I've grown so much in real estate is I will listen to things like this and then I would reach out to the person randomly on Facebook. Like those are the people that succeed, like the ones that are actually going to be like, who is this Jacob Shrug? He seems smart. He's doing 1 deal per month, working 20 hours per week. Great. Reach out to Jacob. Jacob's an open book. He's great to talk to him.
Yeah, that action will separate you. That will speed up the trajectory. I didn't do that and I still made it, but it took longer. It's funny to look back and if I had just done a few couple things like that faster and been a little bit more taking action versus just thinking, oh, that was a good podcast. I love that. Cool. Okay, cool. Take action. What is the one thing that came to mind? Do that one thing. Don't be overwhelmed with, I need to do this and this and this. Just one thing. Next step. And if you just line them up, that's how you get where you want.
Thanks for coming on, Jacob.